That doesn't seem fair. I know how to make C stand out. Listen.
Yeah, Z, I love the letter Z.
Yeah, Z makes this sound.
Yeah, I love that sound.
Today we decided to bring all the stuff we can think of that started with Z.
This is the letter Z.
Hey yo, they like be easy, Kyle, that's Ezekiel, Kazulu, long green, getting that some kidney stills, Zeta bite, zigging there, hit him with the flame, call me Kazala, on the rare instrument of change, zero zones die cool, kid I'm undescribable, living undescribable, handlebar gripper, Khalid Zappa zombie killers, Zanzibar spitter, with the Kaz elder, zip code for stellar race, compressed, I downloaded from the cloud, so I never age. Zippers in my DNA, stay fresh and won't decay. Even when I zigzag, see I know the way of the cross that I carry to the zenith every day. The original stay rocks, you were just Xerox. I'm Kazoro, asterisk and astronomical. I swore cut the sky that bled rain, missed it, impossible. Kaz Bobways and beards to Zaire watch. Libby's make an ocean out of 69 teardrops. Zechariah stitches for the stitches that get their cops. Kasha Sam Samurai, Kazu Keeper. Cover me a lines, call me Kai Newsy. Zilla God, zero odds. Listen to the sky quotes. Always was a fly goat before I was a psycho. Kai Zeta saying seven is a mic heist. Sound of forever to come of Kai Zeitgeist. Kai Ziggurat, step into the heights of Kai Zap and tech and slap protecting pictures the design. Right, calling me Kai Zaddy, they wanted the God Daddy, Kai Zealous God filler, talking so hard actually. Kai Zeppelin, raising up your next to kin, electric skin Nephilim, coming for they next again like Jewelry Kai's oversight, Zeo like Crystal. I'm Kai Zion, undefeated Christ, missile laser tag, red dots start to pop up like a zig. If I get thinking not meddling Kai Zinc, who's messing with Kai Zinc? Memorize the lessons, God's think, spiraling the message in Kai Zinc. Stellar well Kai Zam Zamboni, smooth it out, turn into ice. The grand yogi couldn't step in my Zapata no more, they can't hold me. It's Kai Hoopy, Zula hooping with the Taurus spill, coupled with different cloth, but they never Taurus spill. Kai Zephyr breeze blew away the best MCs, take them to the next degree. Music's a lot, get these pillars to the patience like I'm doing some cotton. Though I wonder at the top, can this shrine get any lonelier? This lightning that I wrote for these bite is a utopia so bright I even make these real diamonds look phonier. Copy your Kai's pictures, they could be Kai's Iconias. Kazoon, sisters in the costume, it's crazy. Zany, Zigga Man, K's A to Z, amazing me, dancing to the clock's tune. Kazilla God, Phoenix with the weed wings, burn the ash to make myself higher than the steam ring. Zodiac, yo, it ain't nothing but a sting. Press about my shell like cicadas on the trees cling, sounding like barbershop clippers when the bees sting. Who is fly as KZ? Making me who is fly as KZ? Making me yo, electric in the sound of the lead. Dough rolls, Kai ZD surrounded with my umbrella. Nebula Carneza, guess the secret is out. If the answer is within astrologers, they shout, they all asking what it's about. Because I'm the wizard of Kazo with no announce. That's a 12-wheel spokes, let the speakers announce. The blizzard of God, gnosis what they screaming about. These Estrella, Jesus, count to the sleepers, cause the Z's at the end like Pisces, the believer. Z shocking, it's the center of amazing. Connecting from Aquarius signs when you arrange them. In the lightning bolt, I'm Kazusius. That's Caduceus. Who's he? Who's Z? 2Z, ZZ, firmament top. Yo got the jazz in Buddhist turbans. Ziggas in the bed, Zodiac in that egg. Kazusu, lizard shoes wrapping my legs. Honoring the seafood, wandering the seafood. Not the average tourist, not a cow, I'm a zebra from Zebu. KZ, A is the Kizzer. Mr. Special Executive, word scissor hand. Coet, Zodiac Coato, Sizzler man. Kazakiel, Kazak Morris. Saved by the Visa bubble popper that can crack the shell. Did it with pizzazz, but it doesn't ring a jazzy bell. Earth, Emerald City, one eyes in the ozone. It only takes one to make my own zone. I was raised in the science of the obscure. I can make the lions in the sun purr. If you find a Z in it, that's a buzzword. Kazepulon powers that you heard he had. Lexicon, Kazuriab, astrological machine, Kazotar, Kazo's heaviest legend in Kazohar. My words go far from Zurich to Ozar. Who is fly as KZ? Making me damn shit. What should I be? Who is fly as KZ? Making me damn shit. What should I be? L in the 7 is God, combine both, get his the electrical charge, last Dragon Balls, Zodiac the new Z-Man, Electri City, the mayor of New Zealand. One Z, flip it into the side, that's inside, that's the end. For the pen and the scribe, do you see that the Z is the end of the alphabet? You don't believe me? It's the end of the alphabet, currency without the flesh. Think of this math, the Z is an equal sign. Link with a slash, you won't see Zen till you see the Z's and the seasons. The C's and the Z, it determines the size. If you pry inside the box, Z determines the prize. Come see a new world in your eyes. That's the IZ. Let your mind see you measure the book. If you run, you see the Z's in the leg and the foot. Is it pie season, pie Z? Zodiac slices in the pizza, see what spies see whenever they look. For these spices up the prices, Zeppelins that I cook. From unique to Zeke, science that the youth speak. Magnets in the U speak, connected the hook. Bazooka Zodiac blew the head off your rook.
Wow, that's like the best Z sound I ever heard. You must be a Z expert.
Alright, peace and light. Welcome to another episode of Knowledge Radio, place for knowledge and born. This shows knowledge born alive. So I had to let my superhero mama and son duo meet my superhero Baba and son duo, okay, so they can collaborate. So we can get Echoboy and the whole fam up there. You understand what I'm saying? Getting it together. I get a little sample. But at this moment, I want to recognize and I want to honor you for your achievements, for your accomplishments, for your resilience, regardless to the amount of adversity that you have faced as a Black mother, you know, as an inspiration to so many. We know that comes with its own unique set of challenges, so we embrace you with all the love and all of the honor here for this Empowering Voices series connected to the Kosmic Nobodies Convention / Award show. So let's get to the award winning. She award winning in 600 categories. Okay, first of all, we get that together. They still winning awards together. So they superheroes and award winners and published authors and all kinds of stuff. You understand what I'm saying? So let's give it up for Phillies Flyers. We got my God in the building. Because my honor and privilege at this time to introduce some to others, a phenomenal mind who is an advocate for inclusion, an advocate for wellness, and for transformative dream making. Okay. She is the dream making mama whisperer. Okay, so let's put our hands together and show our love for Philly's own Chante Douglas in the house. Peace, 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 Queen. How you feeling? How you feeling? How you feeling?
That has to be one of the best intros I have ever heard for myself. Thank you for that. I received that, and I'm probably gonna. I should have. Well, this is being recorded, so I'm gonna go back and replay that part over and over again. Thank you so much for that. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show.
We giving love where the love is supposed to be. You out there saving the world. So we dealing in the space of reciprocity and love because no one is speaking for black children in the way that you're speaking for black children. So it's an inspiration and a motivation to us all. We get out here with black men, we get out here with black women. We like, black children, not so much.
You're
So
right.
you're being an advocate for the continuance of black life, which is perplexing to me, but not surprising in regards to the assault on black life, the assault on black motherhood in
Right.
specific. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So you going through leaps and bounds and heroic acts. We just wanted to pay homage and ode to you. So yes, how you feeling? You
I'm
good?
good.
You all right?
Yeah, I can't complain. I always use a quote that my dad always tells me that there are people out there that wish that they had the problems you complain about. So
Mm,
that's a grounding mantra for me that no matter what is going on in my life and I feel overwhelmed, there's always someone out there who is in dire straits that they wish that they could have the problems of, oh, I got to get up and go to work, or I got to get an oil change, or things that we just don't think about, like, ugh, I got to do this again. But there's people out here who don't have a roof over their head, they don't have a car to drive, they are unemployed, you know what I'm saying? So I really try to, and I mean, we're all guilty of it. We get caught up sometimes of um, complaining, but it's always good to have that reminder and bring it all back to um, the basic is that we opened our eyes this morning. That's a blessing in itself. There's a lot of people who did not wake up this morning. You know what I'm saying? Every day is a gift, and we have to live in the moment. Um, But yeah, getting back to what you were saying though about focusing on black children, it's crazy because a video popped up on my Facebook memories from 6 years ago. My son is 10 now, and the video, he was about 4, and I immediately got emotional because it's weird how videos and pictures can capture emotions in that time, and you don't think about it until years later when you go back. I'm like, I wasn't even the same person back in 2017 than where I'm at in 2023. And I just remember, my son wasn't completely verbal back in 2017. He was 4. And I remember even the car was different. That car I was driving, it was always breaking down. I think I put more money into that car than what it was worth. But it was like that was the only source of transportation. Like, I didn't have anybody else to be like, yo, can you come and take my son to school? Or I got to get to work, or, you know, um, you have to find a way and make a way, right? So I was watching it and I'm like, the journey that me and him have been on since 2017 and where we are now in 2023, all the progress that he's been making, even me as his mom, it was a lot of things I had to work on for myself to be a better version of myself so that I could be the mom and the advocate for him and for other families. Like, if I'm not mentally strong and I'm not mentally present, I'm no good to nobody, especially to myself. You know what I'm saying? So mental health, um, is crucial in our community, and it's something that we don't tap into and talk about. And that's another silent killer in our community. There's people who are committing suicide. There are people silently struggling with anxiety, PTSD, generational trauma, bipolar, things that we, will crack jokes about, but people are struggling out here, especially within the Black community. One of the books that I wrote, I specifically wrote that to give kids a safe space of talking about their feelings. And since we are talking about Black children, I think it's extremely important as us as Black parents to start them when they're really young, to get them comfortable about talking about how they're feeling. Even if, they're 3-4 years old, get into the habit of like, how are you feeling? You know what I'm saying? So that they get comfortable as they're progressing in their childhood, that they know that they have a safe space and they're not going to be ridiculed or made fun of because, they feel sad one day, or they want to cry, or, they've been bullied, which that's another topic that I talk about in my books. The thing is, like, the way that I write, I want to be completely honest with kids, because kids are extremely smart. They're not stupid. They're very aware of their environment, whatever their environment is. So yeah, a lot of things that I live every single day, I take that from life experiences that I put into the children's books. I don't make it heavy handed, because I still want the kids to enjoy reading the books, but also I want to put jewels and life lessons in those stories, so that it opens a conversation with their parents if their parents are reading the books to them. But it really all started, I feel like I'm rambling right now, but it really
You
all
flowing?
started.
Go ahead and flow. Okay, go ahead and flow.
It really all started with the whole writing thing when I was younger. I really wish I still had this poetry book, but it was a compilation of Black poets. And I think it had to be my mom. My mom was really big on me reading and reading different books and buying me books. So from a young age, I was always into reading. In elementary school, I fell in love with poetry. The book that she gave me had a lot of poems from Langston Hughes. Fell in love with just like his style of writing, and I just thought it was just fun hearing words rhyme. Not really understanding, like 7-8 years old, how poetry can really bring out some really strong emotions. You're only 7-8 years old. By the time I got into junior high, I was introduced to Maya Angelou, and I remember we read "I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings," and we also watched the movie that was based on her book. And that's when I really like felt a connection with someone who, the way that she uses her words, how powerful her words were. And that was me at like 13, 14 years old. By the time I got into high school, I want to say my freshman year of high school, and I still talk to this teacher, and every time I have an interview, I talk about her, because I really fully believe in the people that inspired you or supported you the most, they always deserve their flowers. So Mrs. Stam, my freshman year English teacher, I remember her. She always wanted us to do creative writing. She'll give a list of vocabulary words, and her thing was, I don't want you to just write sentences around this word. I want you to understand the use of using this word, so that when you're reading what you're writing, it flows. It doesn't feel choppy, like you know what you're talking about. And that always stuck with me, with using the English language and using vocabulary. And I remember I wrote a creative story for her for an assignment, and she was, giving the assignments back to us, with the writing that the English teachers always use. And I remember, and I kept it for a long time, and I lost it, and that broke my heart. But the note that she wrote, on the last page of what I wrote, she was like, you really have a gift of painting a picture of what you're talking about. And I forgot what the story was, but I was able to use everything that she wanted us to use in the story, and I used it correctly. But also, came out with a very creative story, right? So after that was like the tipping point for me to learn to use what I'm feeling in here and in my heart and express it through writing. Because as a teenager, and I mean a lot of us as teenagers, we don't know how to express our feelings. And I was very introverted. A lot of people don't believe that, but I was very introverted in high school and not confident in myself on explaining how I was feeling, or if I was crushing on a guy, how do I tell him? So that was my connection. Like, I wrote a letter to this guy that I had a crush on in high school, and I let all my friends read it first, and every single one of them started crying. They're like, "You wrote this? Oh my God!" And I'm like, and even then I was like, well, my intentions wasn't trying to make you cry, but I just wanted you to read it just to make sure it sounded all right so I can give it to him. But then, like, I always go back to that point, and that's always like a thing going forward with me when I would write stuff, that I would be so locked into my emotions writing that anybody who would read what I wrote, I would pull those same emotions out of them. So, as I kind of stepped away from writing for a little bit, only because honestly, I didn't know where it was going to lead. I had a couple people saying you should be a published author, and I'm like, that takes money and resources, and I don't have time for that. This is me in my 20s, and I was just a wreck in my 20s, not focused on anything. Then fast forward, when I found out I was pregnant, that was God really saying, like, this is the direction your life is going to be taken, because I had a cancer scare in my late 20s that wasn't sure if conceiving a child was going to be even possible because of the surgery that I had. So to even find out that I was pregnant, I was scared. I was like, I'm like, I don't even know if this is, I don't even know if I can hold the weight of what being a mother is. You know what I'm saying? And I have the parents that I have set such a high bar of who they are as parents, that I'm like, that was me once again, not being grounded in myself and being confident, which has been, up until a few years ago, has been kind of like a thread in my life of, like, you got to really be your own standing ovation. You really got to be your biggest fan, because not everybody is out here to see you grow in your confidence, believe in you, all of that stuff, right? So Levi was born, and won't get into everything else that came with, the whole dynamics of him, his father, and myself. But once Levi turned about, I want to say 18, between 18 and 20 months old. And at that time, I was working overnight shifts at a hospital. I was working on a cardiac floor. So I was beyond exhausted, working 12-hour shifts. So my mom had him a lot of the time, watching him for me. And she had a conversation with me about, she started noticing signs of autism. And I had no clue about what autism was. And I let it sit and marinate for like about a week. And I'm like, well, the worst that can happen is I'll make an appointment with his pediatrician. We can talk about it and then see where it goes from there, right? Still not understanding what this journey was actually going to evolve into, and where me and him would be, where me and him are at today, right? So make a long story short, after that, what really kind of propelled me into not only advocating for him, but advocating for other families, I just started noticing, the disparities with services, and not just like on a cultural difference. Like we already see the disparities with access to quality services for Black families versus white families, and other dynamics. But the other issue was, like, people who have money, who can afford these services, versus everyone who's like really grinding it out, you know, working or below the poverty line. Like, it was really like eye-opening, a lot of things that just, to me, just didn't seem fair. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the kids that's suffering. But I think what really lit a fire under me was there was an issue that happened at one of Levi's schools, and I I got so pissed off that I ended up getting an educational lawyer, and come to find out, like, they really wasn't supporting my son the way that they were supposed to. And I was so adamant because what people fail to realize, and why I'm so big on literacy with our kids, especially our Black kids, that whole pipeline to prison is real. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not, that was put into place for a reason. If you put into a child's head in kindergarten, or we can go as far as back as preschool, that they're aggressive, that they're going to be a problem child, that they're bad or whatever, that feeds into their brain as they're developing. And by the time they hit high school, then there's like, oh, he's out of control or she's out of control. And then the system gives up on them. And then some, not all of them, end up dropping out of high school because they're like, well, you told me like I wasn't shit back in elementary school. So like, what are my options? You know what I'm saying? So I did not want that for my son, especially because my son also is neurodivergent. We're not doing that. Not on my watch. Not while I'm on this earth breathing. We're not doing it. So I sued the school district. I sued the school district actually twice. Once before the pandemic, and the second time during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I was like mentally like not all the way together, to be completely transparent. I had got laid off, temporarily laid off, and never been laid off in my life. So I'm sitting at home, everything's on lockdown. And then we're doing virtual learning. And the teacher at the time, I already had issues with her before before we even went into the pandemic. So we're on a conference call, and I'm just going off on everybody. My lawyer is on the phone. The school district's lawyer is on the phone, and they talking about a whole bunch of lies. And I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, one thing you will not do is make it seem like I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know what the process is when it comes to my child. And I said, the one thing I can tell you, because I've been in the medical field since I was 19, is that any form of documentation that you have to sign off on needs to be explained to you before you sign it. You just don't send home a piece of paper that I have to sign off, and then you just don't explain why I need to sign it. No, I'm not signing it. That doesn't mean I'm not compliant. You need to do the due process and tell me what's going on. So fast forward, I get my son out of that school, and he's in a charter school now. And the shift in how he is now, and how everyone at school, I'm not saying like every single person likes him, because that's not the world we live in, but I don't have to hold my breath anymore when he gets on that school bus and he goes to school. And I know that his teacher has his best interests at heart. The supporting staff has his best interests at heart. But what even inspired me to really further the advocacy, even before Echoboy and ABC Girl, I wrote another book. And it was crazy. I was so determined to write my first book that at the time, because the car that I was driving, I had put so much into getting this car fixed. And I'm a single parent, and it's only a one income household. And like I said, you can't find a way, make a way, right? So I took all of these pictures and put them through this app to make them look illustrated, right? Wrote this like social story, and went on this website that does like self-publishing. Built the book by myself, like page by page, like the text and the pictures, and printed a book out myself, and it's called Levi's World. And if I can find a link to where that book is, because I haven't promoted that book in God knows how long, but I was so proud of that book, because that was really built from the muscle, from the mud, as they say, built from the mud, right? And I'm so proud of that book. Because it really captured Levi in a time where he wasn't verbal. So I wrote it, if at that point in time, if he could talk, this is what he would say. And this is, this is what I do every day, and this is what I do at school. And, that book is still holds a special place in my heart. But after that, around 2018 was when Black Panther and Enter the Spider-Verse came out. And those two movies hold a special place in my heart for me and my son. More so Enter the Spider-Verse, because Levi started becoming obsessed with Spider-Man, and we were still trying to get him used to going to the movies and dealing with like the noise and sitting for an X amount of time, right? So we're sitting in the theater when Enter the Spider-Verse comes on, and that movie is easily, I think both of those movies are 2 hours long, right? And he did not move the entire time, and I'm watching him, and I'm looking at the screen, and I'm watching him, and I mean, like, locked in. And it clicked that he's looking at this kid who is the same complexion as him, same hair type, and also is the same superhero as him, right? And after we came home, I was like, I really need to create like a character just surrounding him. Everything about him, his superpowers, everything about him is what makes up him, right? So I went on this search to find an illustrator, and I started getting discouraged. That book almost did not come out because I was getting discouraged, because I'm like, I can't afford these illustrators. Like, they're asking for like equal to like a down payment for a car. I'm like, y'all crazy. Like, I just bought a car. After driving that car that kept breaking down, I finally got a new car, right? And I'm like, all that money I had saved up, that was gone. That was for the down payment for the car. So I'm like, I don't have the money to be kicking out for, illustrations for a book, right? I'm like, all right, this might have to be delayed. So how God works in mysterious ways, I went to a community event to go support another autism mom. She was having a community event in West Philly, and one of my other friends was a vendor. So I'm walking around, seeing what all the vendors had to offer, right? And I come up to my friend Levine. Shout out Levine if you watching. So I get to her table, and I remember her saying like, "Oh, I'm writing a book." And I seen the book on her table, so I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Who's the illustrator for your book? Like, is he in Philly?" Like, she was like, "Yeah, girl. He's on Instagram. I'll give you his Instagram page." So I messaged him. It took a while for him to get back to me. He finally got back, and I was just shooting ideas of like what I wanted Echoboy to look like. I didn't even have the name yet. I didn't even have ABC Girl in mind. I just had what I wanted Echoboy to look like. So he was like, all right. He was like, well, what's the name of the superhero? And I was like, all right, let me think about that. And I was like, Echoboy, because my son has a speech disorder called echolalia, and it has evolved over the years to the point that if he hears something, he can mimic it, and he's on pitch with music. He's so connected with music. His music teacher told me, she was like, I only showed him one time how to play something on the xylophone, and he did it right after he heard it. So he's like, it really is something that I want him to always be proud of. You know what I'm saying? So that's where Echoboy came from. So we're going back and forth about, the color. I'm very meticulous about everything that you see with those books. There's a reason behind everything with those characters. The reason he's wearing blue is because that's my son's favorite color. The reason he has goggles on top of his head and not on his face is because at the time I was creating that character, my son had issues with wearing goggles or things like really fitted on his face. Um, the reason he can change into Echoboy by using a fidget spinner. My son was, sometimes he still plays with a fidget spinner, but he was really, really into it a few years ago. So then the illustrator, shout out to Reggie. So he was like, well, does he have a sidekick? Like, does he have a friend? And I was like, you know what? I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, all right. So I was like, give me like a day and a half and I'll get back to you. So I'm brainstorming and I knew like I wanted her to be the little girls that I see at Levi's school, at, you know, autism awareness events, um, friends that I know, you know, I just wanted her to be seen. Who I see out in the community, that's who I wanted to put on the cover of the books and be Echoboy's best friend, right? So I came back to Reggie and I was like, all right, here's the deal. Like, I want her to have these two puffball, you know, little ponytails, and her hair has to be curly. Like, I was so meticulous because I did not want this little girl getting like whitewashed, with having like a certain type of texture of hair. Like, I really wanted that representation as a character. And then I was like, you know, I want her superhero outfit to be pink and purple because those are two of my favorite colors. And I said her name's going to be ABC Girl. And he was like, why ABC Girl? And I said, well, literacy at one point in time for us as Black people was outlawed. We were not allowed to read. It was something that was banned, you know, at one point because people didn't want us to gain knowledge, and you gain knowledge from reading, right? So, and the foundation of reading is learning letters. So that's why she's called ABC Girl. But also the double meaning with ABC Girl, ABC stands for always be kind and caring. And just a lot of subliminal, intentional, positive affirmations that I always insert into what I'm writing about, because my audience, their brains are like sponges. So we start with giving them positive affirmations and uplifting them and showing representation. It's important, you know, just like how reading Rainbow was important to me as a kid, and seeing a lot of stories that still hold a dear place in my heart. I don't know if anyone that's watching, I don't know if y'all remember the African story. I think it's called The Two Daughters. I think that's what it's called. But if you know the cover, you know what I'm talking about. But it was like one of the books that was always featured on Reading Rainbow. And I still want I forgot his name. What was the name of the host for Reading Rainbow?
LeVar Burton.
Yes. He has a podcast, and that's on my bucket list to have him read one of my books on his podcast. But yeah, so, and I really had to shout out Reggie Byers, who I just had a conversation with him a few days ago, just letting him know like he is an absolute talent when it comes to illustrations, and how we've had this amazing work relationship over the last 3.5 years, and what we've created between what I write and what I visualize when I'm writing, and how I don't even have to tell him what I want the illustrations to look like. He just reads what I write and just brings it to life. And of course, every single time I'm crying because I'm so emotionally connected to what I'm creating, and I care that much about what I'm creating. So, you know, what kids think and how they receive it means a lot to me. It really does. And I really want to shout out Sunshine and the platform and the space that she created to really acknowledge all of us as Black people when we don't get the, not that we do things to get recognition, but it is nice to be acknowledged for the work that you do and the art that you do create. It just makes you feel good, you know what I'm saying? But I want to shout out her because I know
Yeah, how did y'all get connected? What's the backstory? I need to know the tea. You know, I need to know the tea. How did y'all get connected?
Oh wait, what'd you say?
I said, how did y'all get connected? You and Sunshine. And how did you become a less nobody's
you know what? Actually, I seen her do an interview with Oh God, I'm terrible with names. Oh, she was doing a Instagram live with Sunshine. Don't kill me if you see this. I forgot the ladies you were doing an interview with, but she has this energy and this aura about her that is so beautiful. And I told her that like the first time me and her met, not at the last year's Cosmic Nobodies Convention, but the year before. And like even like when I hugged her, it's just this energy from her that's just it's so like everyone doesn't possess that. You know what I'm saying? And what really made me want to tap in with her was just things that she was talking about, how that she's really into holistic care. And I even did a tarot card reading with her, and the things that she was telling me, I was like, yo, this is wild. Like, but I really took it to heart because I was like, at that point in time when I did the tarot card reading with her, um it was still a lot of chaos going on around me, and I just didn't know how to filter all of that out, meanwhile just running on an empty cup. And she kept bringing that up every time she was telling me. She's like, you have to take some time and refill your cup. And that cup didn't get refilled until May of this year. And I think I did the tarot card reading with her, I think like a year and a half ago. But I always say things happen in due time and when they're supposed to happen. But I'm just so grateful to you, Sunshine. I love you, girl. Can't wait to see you next weekend. Thank you for everything that you do for all of us, and acknowledging every single person that was nominated, your gifts, your talents, your art. Because all of us, we do it because we care and we love our communities, and we just want the best for the people that we're in the trenches with. Oh, I can't hear you.
You went to the convention last year. You hear me okay, man?
Yep.
Okay. So you went to the convention last year. What was that like for you? And you won last year, right? You won?
I did win last year. I couldn't go because I had prior commitments to something else that same weekend. But the year I went to the one the year before, and that was amazing. It was just a great vibe and a great atmosphere. And um that was, like I said, that was the first time I actually got to meet Sunshine in person. And that's been my girl ever since. I love her to death.
That was Philly, right? That year?
Yeah. She lives in Jersey, I believe, though, but she's not that far from Philly.
But that one was in Philly, right? The one you went to?
Yeah, that one was in Philly, and then I think the one last year was in Jersey, I believe.
Okay. That's what's up. That's what's up. I'm proud. I'm proud. So you've been living this, you and Levi, shout out to Levi.
Yes.
Levi is sacred. Levi is Levi the name, and Levi your son, one and the same, right? The Levitical priesthood was responsible for establishing law from a lawless group of people who were at war with each other. They were all brothers and sisters of one another, but they were fighting and killing one another. So when they established the tribes to come together and to unify, the Levite priesthood was responsible for law and justice. So they were the judges, they were the law establishers, the law interpreters, and the law keepers. And look at this divine universal principle manifest in this physical form, and look how he advocates as a superhero and as a young man.
Yeah.
He advocates with that same power from the line that he descends from. So this is a beautiful thing. And you advocating for him in the same way that a lawyer would in the system of law to prove your cases.
Wow.
Look how God is using your life to be an adjudicator and one who brings justice and to bear witness through your son, a lawgiver and a
Wow.
mind changer. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
this is a shift in mind. You know, we look at things from one perspective, and here we got a whole nother perspective.
Right.
He's living a life where you would think there would be, not that there aren't challenges, but every one of these challenges turned out to be one of the greatest gifts and blessings. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So all of this comes in regards to this space that he's operating in, the space that you're operating in, and how y'all are able to traverse the earth and reform the minds and hearts of people around. So you went from writing from your heart, as you established, to writing for the heart of people, writing for the heart and the mind of people. So I just think that it's amazing. This has been an amazing journey unfolding. Like I said, I've seen you all over the places. You know, you and Levi are my hero. You see what I'm saying? So I've seen my heroes out there, you know, advocating and having fun and all of that. You know, we could get bogged down with the reality or we can change the reality around us. You know,
Right.
so through the pandemic, this is the, you know, one or two things I wanted to speak about in that case. Those were a different set of challenges. And in that space, you wrote a book about those specific challenges. And that book gave the conversation piece to have with our children in regards to, you know, the conversation starter, rather, to have with our children to express themselves. I
Right.
just wanted to share a quick story with you. My son was 6 at the time, 6 or 7. And I seen him, you know, one day and he had tears in his eyes. He had tears in his eyes and he was outside, just ducked off from everybody. And I went outside and I saw him and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And he looked at me like, "Oh, oh hell, I'm in trouble. I done did some shit." You see what I'm saying? Like, and he looked at me and he was trying to, you know, wipe away the tears. I was like, "What's wrong?" He was like, "I'm just stressed out. I'm just so stressed out." And the way he looked at me like my great grandfather, trying to articulate to me in a way to break a curse and a cycle that has plagued our families since our sojourn in America. In that instance, you know how we were trained and indoctrinated, right? Or you don't
Right.
got no bills to pay, or this and that, and blah, 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 blah. Instead of hearing and hearkening to the voice of this divine ancestor being that we talk about, right?
Right.
Teaching us. In that moment, I looked at him and I remember all the training and I could hear all the training in the back of my head and I threw that shit in the trash, I'd say. And I got eye level with my son and said, "Tell me what's going on, what happened?" He was worried about the family. He was worried, like worried sick, worried fret, worried about our health and our well being. And it brought him to tears at like 6 years old.
Wow.
So that space of having that space gave a different outlook and now a different ancestral outlook on how we reason. You know, I said that because the superheroes that you crafted and created view conflict resolution in a whole nother way than the way you would expect. There's a fight, but there's not the fight in that fight way that you're looking for the hero to be heroic to fight. And I think that that's amazing. I think that's very, very powerful in regards to looking at conflict resolution because that conflict starts in the head and in the heart And then if it's not checked, it'll be demonstrated through the hands. So I think y'all did a tremendous job with articulating that and spelling that out in a fashion where the children can teach the adults and adults can teach the children,
Right.
interchangeably in that space. So what did it really feel like when the books were done and they were out and they were distributed, and what's happening? What space are we in regards to that?
You know how, people always say, like, if I can go back and relive those feelings in that moment all over again, I would do it in a heartbeat. And without me even like trying not to get emotional, but it was like having another child, like I spent a good 6 months writing that in the middle of, working full time and being present, as a mom to Levi. I would take time every single day just to keep writing and keep, as soon as something would pop in my head, and I get like it's like a it's weird when I say this, but it's a buzzing sound that goes off in my head, like letting me know, write it down. Something just hit, just write it down. And even if it doesn't make sense, once you go back to editing and rewriting the story, it'll make sense. So I kept doing that. And by the time I got to the end of the story and I went back and I was reading it, and I'm like, I don't remember even writing half of this, right? But it was just like I was so present in telling the story. So following the process with Reggie, and he would first send me like the black and white version and make sure, was it, how did I feel about that? Then he would proceed and then add color, to the illustration. And every single time I would start crying. But when I got that physical book, like the first copy in the mail, like, um, if anybody knows, like anybody watching, like when you have had a goal or a dream for so long and you gave up on that dream because you didn't think you were good enough, I'm not gonna cry. Because you didn't think you were good enough to pursue that and to accomplish that. I really wish I can go back to 2019 and feel that all over again. Because that, not saying I'm not motivated, because I'm always motivated to keep writing and to keep. It's like a duty to our kids to keep empowering them, to let them know that, you know they're not they're not forgotten, and um they're not hidden away. You know what I'm saying? Like, always put the spotlight on them, and know, like, like that song, Holly Bailey put out last week about an angel, and just the homage to black girls. That can just resonate with us, just, you know us as a whole, as a black community, that we're angels, we're heaven sent. That's how I always want, our kids to feel like. So to see that, and then to go to my first event, and just the looks on kids' faces when they see these two superhero kids that look like them. They don't even know what the story is about, but just that it's so colorful. And that's why I will never stop talking about how talented Reggie was, because he took my ideas, and then just because he also connected with what I was trying to do. And I just did it with love. I always lead with, if you're not going to 100% do something from the heart, don't do it at all, because it's never going to resonate, it's never going to be received well. And just don't do it, because you're just wasting everybody's time. So that's always been my motto. Like, if I feel like my heart's not into it, I'm not going to do it, because the end result is just not going to be um what my expectations are. But getting that, all three of them, I went through the same process with all three of them, and each one, I I get emotional, because it's like, what was up here, and what's swimming around in here, that I connect to on paper, and I'm writing, and then I'll go back and I'll scribble something out, then I'll write like a whole paragraph that makes no sense, but then it'll make sense later, because that's how my writing process is. To see it all come together, and then see people receive it so well, even if their kids are not on the spectrum or they're not neurodivergent, that kids want to be Echoboy or ABC girl. They want to dress up like them, or I'll get questions about t-shirts or things that cost money that I don't have right now that I want to do. But the least that I can do is, when I'm at events, I always make it my business to, however many that I sell, that's how many I give away. And some people are like, why do you always do that? But I the reason why I say this is the first time I did a children's book festival in Camden in 2019 when that book came out. And I remember I set up my table, I had all my stuff, and Camden is on the same wavelength as Philly, as far as there's a huge population of us that is struggling, right? And it really didn't hit me and until that day. And it was a little girl and her sister, they came up, and it was like a back to school event as well, so kids can get free book bags, and then they can pick whatever book they wanted from one of the authors. So I seen this one little girl keep coming back and forth to my table, and she was like, she really wanted my book, but the person running, the event, I didn't know how it worked, but she had already picked another book, but she really wanted mine too. And it stuck with me that I'm like, from that point on, anytime I do an event, I'll always have gift bags of free books to give away, because I didn't go into it to be like, oh, I'm, New York Times bestseller. I did this because, one, it was an open letter of love to my son, first and foremost, before anything else. But then it was also an open letter to every single child that feels like they're not represented, they're not loved, they're not seen. So, if they're coloring an ABC Girls coloring book, or they're reading Are You Okay, or they're reading The Adventures of Echoboy and ABC, or I always want them to feel like, I wrote these stories with you in mind as well, and those types of stories leave a lasting impact. Like I still remember books that I enjoyed reading that have stayed with me, and I'm in my 40s now. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, sorry for getting emotional, but yeah, that when you asked me that, it took me back.
Don't you even dare. Don't you even dare. You said you wished you could go back to that feeling in 2019. You went right there, right in front. Don't even play. Don't even play like that. Okay? Right. If you didn't get emotional, I'd have been like, who took over your show for 2 seconds? Who are you? Who is this? Okay. Yeah, no. It's
Right.
definitely, I mean, this is what it is. This is why you did what you did. This is how it started. It started like that. You wrote a letter for a guy, and everybody got affected. I don't know if the guy got affected, but everybody else got affected. You see what I'm saying? Because we're a little slow as a species. Okay, we're a little slow as a species. So the point was you got a reaction out of people. Zane did the same thing. She didn't write for a guy, but she wrote, and people was like, "Oh, this is great. Where's the next one? How can I get the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one?"
Right.
Fast forward, and she hid this from her parents. She told me that she hid it from her parents for years before she revealed to them, like, that's me. You see what I'm saying? So it's
Wow.
that kind of mind of
Yeah.
what it was. That was her subject matter. That was her calling. And that's what she does. This is what she does. And this is what her daughter, her son, they all are immersed in that world. And it started off from a determined idea that she had for herself. You had this idea with your son as the prize. The world is gleaning and benefiting off of something that you saw based on the lack of representation for your son, and then all of your children, because you're the mother of civilization, all of your children across the world. Now look at that. Look at what happens. Look at how endless the possibilities are. And then you're still having that space of that giving mother charitable spirit to be able to match what you receive. That's reciprocity. You're pouring back into the universe. So the universe is pouring back into you. That's why we're here celebrating you today. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
See why she a superhero, y'all? Look, let me tell you, you can't make this up. Okay, you can't make this up. So, a part of you legacy building. What's a legacy you want to leave? And let's talk about self care, balance, because you be doing a whole lot. Y'all doing a whole lot. Y'all saving the world and all of that. How do y'all take time for yourselves? Is that a priority? However that goes.
Yes, that's been one where we have a family therapist, so I'm strongly an advocate for mental health. We really got to take care of. And some people think, well, I don't have any issues to talk about, and I don't, and that's not even the point. The point is that our brains get so wound up that we need that release. We need that reset. Um, I know for me, because I work, if I'm not working, then I'm doing an event, or me and Levi, we're out just doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. Um, but I think I just like to take time to just like just to stay grounded and relax. You know what I'm saying? And that could be something as easy just like reading a book, um, getting a massage, taking a nap, just to recharge. Because I really, and you know what, and I'm gonna say this is what's really crazy. I was in a session with my therapist, and she was like, you really struggle with acknowledging everything that you do, and you really need to give yourself more credit. She's like, I know you like to be humble and you don't like to talk about or brag about things that you do, but you really need to acknowledge that so you know how to better take care of yourself. And that really hit me, because I was like, you know what, she has a point. And she made me write down every single thing, and it took like 2 full pages back, front and back, of things that, not only just as a mother, but things that I'm doing. Like, I'm on a board for Levine. Shout out to Levine again. She is the CEO of Advocate for Me. I'm one of her board members. I'm also on a parent advocacy council in Philadelphia that's partnered with the Department of Health, who I just went to New Orleans back in May for a conference that was specifically for mothers and children's health, even more specific, talking about the rising rates in Black mothers dying in during labor, bringing children into this world and not making it to see their children take that first breath. And why is that happening? And why has it been happening for so long? The disparities in the medical system. So, you know, um, that was a point really that was crazy, that I was dealing with a really bad anxiety attack while I was down there. But something shifted in me that I was in a workshop, and the lady was like, I need y'all to write down 3 things on this 3x5 card. She's like, on 3 different 3x5 cards. One of them you're gonna put on the floor, and that one's gonna represent everything that you have no control over, no matter what the end result or the end game of it is. You can't change the dynamics of it. That's what you're gonna put on the floor, and that's gonna represent what you're going to leave in New Orleans when you travel back to wherever you live, right? And she's like, then the other 2 things are things you're going to work on that you do have control over, but you're going to go about it a different way, because your mental health is just as important, right? So the thing that I wrote down that I was going to leave in New Orleans, I left in New Orleans. And when I got on that plane to fly home, I felt so much lighter in my spirit and in my mind, that like a switch went off in me. Like as soon as I touched down in Philly, it was like a repurpose, a new fire. And the next sessions after that with my therapist was really emotional, because I was like, I haven't been in this position in so long to finally breathe, to finally let my mind breathe, because I've been doing so much for everybody else that I've neglected the most important person, and that was me. And that's not saying that my son is not important, but I just never made myself a priority, because I put all of my energy in making sure that he is where he's at now. And I would, if I had to do it all over again, I would do the same path that I took the first time around. I have no regrets to that, because everything, the choices that you make lead you to where your journey is supposed to go, right? And now I just know I make it a priority to take care of myself and not feel guilty about it, because I carry guilt. That was like my ball and chain for a long time, was like, I can't do this because then, I don't want to call somebody and have them watch Levi because, it's just a lot right now. And, all that was just building up. And I'm so glad I pushed myself through probably one of the worst anxiety attacks I've ever had, which the irony of it was I was down there so that I could help people back in Philly, you know what I'm saying, be a better advocate, but I had to push myself through my own battle so that I could come out on the other side and be better for myself, but for the community that I serve, you know what I'm saying? And no one understands like your journey, especially if they follow you on social media, because social media is just a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? Like, you post things to give people what you want them to see of your life, right? And no one knows the journey. Like I told my therapist, it was a lot of broken glass I crawled or I walked over. It was a lot of cuts and bruises and pain to obtain the pursuit of happiness. The irony of the pursuit of happiness is not an easy road to take, because there's a lot of adult decisions you have to make, accountability you have to take. And that rhymed, and I didn't mean to do that on purpose. It's the writer in me. But it's like a full circle moment, and it all comes back to, I have to keep my cup refilled. I can't give my all if there's nothing to give anymore. So and if I can't set that example, my son won't know how to do that. And matter of fact, I had a conversation with his therapist the other day, and now we're in the double digits. He's 10, right? And I know, like, we're about to hit puberty, and him wanting to take a girl out on the, I'm always thinking ahead in the future for him, but I'm also present in the here and now. But the main thing I told her is that I just want him to always be confident, because I didn't have that at his age. I always want him to believe in himself, know that there is nothing weird or odd or anything that people are going to make him feel like he's less than. I want to instill in him the things I didn't learn until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. You know what I'm saying? If he knows this, like, as a child, becoming a preteen, becoming a teenager, he's going to be a beast out here by the time he hits 21, with the way that I want to instill the values and the strength and the resilience. And it was something that I probably will take with me for the rest of my life, that the therapist said. She said, a lot of times when you have been through trauma, generational trauma, like we were talking about earlier, we tend to pass that on to our kids inadvertently. Like, we don't even realize it, because especially if you're a millennial like me, a lot of our parents are from the baby boomer era, and they didn't have the resources or the outlets that, as we were getting older, we became accustomed to, right? So we seen some stuff. We were subjected to some things that as I got older, I'm like, I want to make sure that my son has the right tools when he enters adulthood. I mean, even before adulthood, as a teenager, because there's just so many things that go through my brain as he's getting older, and I just want to make sure he has all the tools that he has to survive out here, but also maintaining the integrity of who he is as well. But she said, I remember her saying, she said, a lot of times trauma gets passed on to kids, but you passed on resilience. And of course, I started crying, because I didn't even think about that. Like, I've been through so much over the last 10 years, and I shielded him from a lot of things that, you know, he needed to be shielded from, because it was, you know, adult situations going on that he didn't need to know about or see or anything. So that took a lot of energy for me to separate all of that, so that, you know, he always has those core memories are always those happy moments. You know, not saying like life is going to be perfect, but um no kid deserves to have reoccurring memories of the worst. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I know that was a long-winded answer, but yeah, just taking care of yourself is so important. Um,
I ain't gonna let you do that either. Talking about long-winded answer, you dropping jewels, speaking from your heart, spirit space, and then you trying to end it all. That's a violation. Violation. Okay. That's a violation. Where can people get the books from you? And do you have anything coming up that you want to share with the
yes,
family?
yeah. So all of the books are on Amazon. You can find them all. You can also, it's easier to follow me on social media. You can follow me on Instagram, Echoboy and ABC Girl. There's a link in my bio for all of the books. It's actually a lot easier just to click on the link, and each separate link for the books are on there. Um, the next thing I have coming up, I will be in Camden for the very last children's book festival, September 23rd, I believe. The flyer's on my page, so if I get the date wrong, I'm sorry. But that will be the yeah, that would be the next event that I'm doing. And then after that, I just kind of take a hiatus. I am currently working on another book. Don't have a release date for it, but just we're working on the illustrations for it. It's the title is I Miss You Daddy. This is specifically for neurodivergent children who have a parent that has been incarcerated. I just felt like, once again, like how you were saying before, you know, when you don't see something represented, create a space for it. And I know that's easier said than done, but I just felt like being tapped into the children's book environment now, and there's not too many books that help kids cope with having a parent that's in jail, that's in prison, and um you know, having those feelings explored. How do they feel? And so this story is written from Levi's point of view. This was based on a conversation I had with him when his dad was locked up in 2021. He was locked up for about 9 months. And ironically, this was on Father's Day. He was asking about his dad, and I'm always completely honest with him. I don't do that, oh, he's on vacation or he's on a trip somewhere. I told him, you know, your dad is in jail, and his actions and what he did has no reflection on you. You were not the reason he's where he's at. But also, you know, your dad still loves you. Even though me and his dad are not the best of friends, I have grown in accepting the dynamics of where me and him are at. And I can only be responsible for what I'm responsible for, and that's being a mother to my son. What he decides to do or don't do has no reflection on what I need to do. And that whole being messy and, you know, just being a lot of stuff we see that gets plastered on social media, and people we know firsthand, it just gets too messy. I don't got the energy for that no more. I'm in such a namaste era in my life now that anything that even hints of being messy, I don't want to deal with it. Don't bring it in my personal space. Don't bring it in my household. I don't want it. So yeah, and I did tell his dad that I wrote this book about, you know, that whole situation, so he's not blindsided, you know, once this book comes out. And I had a conversation with him about the whole conversation I had, you know, with our son. But this was a book that needed to be written for sure. And I can't wait for, you know, everyone. This will, disclaimer, this will make you cry because I had Reggie crying when I sent him the manuscript. to start the illustrations. But I can't wait for everyone to read it. Once we come to the home stretch of getting everything completed, I will be posting when it'll be released on social media. So looking forward to that.
Okay. I heard you speaking about being a part of organizations that are mobilizing, for advocacy. Is there some kind of way where there's some kind of book or some kind of video series? Because everybody's not reading, we'll be honest. But for the
Right.
parents, for the teachers, for the caregivers, for the caretakers, what children on the spectrum, like tips for them to be able to engage, like from detection, early detection to discovery, like through the process. Is there some kind of something that's crafted, that's created to help, black parents in particular, caregivers like that, to go through this and navigate this process? Because it's like, okay, like ain't nothing wrong with my child. Like, okay, like so where do we go from this to that? Like how do we navigate that?
Yeah, best thing to do is really follow me on social media. Please DM me, send me a message. Since I am connected with the Department of Health and their initiative of this Parent Advocacy Council, there's so many events that's going on in the city that we get flyers in our emails of all different types of disabilities and neurodivergent um, events that can help parents. Also, if you follow Advocate for Me on Instagram, Levine is a wealth of knowledge. She's very well versed in with IEPs and her having a child with special needs as well. She's been my rock and for a lot of things that I needed over the last few years that me and her have known each other and built this amazing sisterhood. She's basically family to me. But if you like to contact me, you absolutely can do that. I'm not versed in everything that I can give you a direct answer, but I can guarantee I can always find an answer for you because if I don't know it, I definitely know somebody who will get you what you need and where to go and how to navigate through the process of and one important thing when you feel as though something is going on with your child, because I hate saying something wrong with your child. I hate that verbiage. But if you detect that something is not of something needs to be addressed with a doctor, start off with your pediatrician, then ask your pediatrician because they can't give a formal diagnosis of anything behavioral. It needs to come from a child psychologist. If you are in the Philly area, and this is for anybody who comes back and rewatches this video, if you are in the Philly area, you can go to the Center for Autism. You can look that up online, Center for Autism. You can check with St. Christopher's Hospital and also CHOP. Those are the three main avenues to take to getting your child diagnosed. Now, the waiting period is really where people kind of like, I gotta wait this long, and just trust the process. I know we hate that that verbiage in Philly because that's associated with the Sixers, but trust the process of getting what you need for your kids. Also, there is another organization in the northeast part of the city called SPIN, which stands for Special People in the Northeast. They also do diagnosis and they have a lot of support services. But just feel free to hit me up. I know there's different organizations in different areas of the city, but I can coordinate with whoever I know to help you in the best way.
I put a lot of those links over there in the chat so they could check them out, including your link tree. Because the link tree is popping, y'all. The link tree is popping. Okay. That link tree is popping. So
Thank you.
all right. So we about to wrap it up. You got anything else you want to say? Anybody you want to shout out? Any of that?
Yes. so many people, but I'm gonna keep it short because I know we gotta get off soon. But I want
You good. Make sure, because them people gonna be in your DM and text you like, hold on, I ain't getting no shout out. I'm saying, fam. I'm like, how you gonna do me like
I
that?
know, I know. I gotta shout out a fellow autism mom who is so amazing and doing some amazing work, and I need y'all to go and follow her business page, Black Girls with Green Thumbs. Her and her best friend are founders of this amazing organization. Their mission is to help the community with healthy eating, healthy way of living, especially within the Black community, which is so important. She also coincides with a lot of local schools with helping them with gardens at the school so kids can learn how to grow things. She's also a certified yoga instructor. I've sat in a session with her before, and Mia, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. LaVon McMillan, please go and support, advocate for me, and also her foundation, Jordan A. Smith Foundation, which is named after her son. We've got some amazing things coming up soon. I can't talk about it right now, but we are working on some amazing things in the community. I'm also trying to plan an event in October because October is anti-bullying month. So anybody who would like to sponsor or get in touch with me on how to be a sponsor, I would greatly appreciate it. Our mission is to bring together enough resources for our local autism families so that they know that, you know, there are people out here who are here to support and give you the knowledge that we have that has helped our kids. So please get in contact me with that. But I want to shout out every single person who has bought a book, read the book, bought the book for their classes, bought the book for someone else. I have to shout out the OG Reggie Byers. Reggie, I love you dearly. Thank you for bringing these characters to life for me. I mean, without your talent and your creativity, I don't think I would possess some of the best and most beautiful children's artwork. And I'm biased when saying that, but I really feel this was some of his best work that he's ever done. And just thank everybody who was watching and joined the live, and thank you for having me on your show. And also shout out Sunshine again. Shout out to all the nominees who I will see next weekend. And just continue to bring the love and the passion that you put into your art and the things that you do for the community. It doesn't go unnoticed.
All right. We out of here. Shout out to Echoboy, AT girls. Shout out to you, Super Mama. Okay, continue to be super and continue to be a mama and advocate for those who are not being advocated for. And we will see you in the winner's circle.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
PM. Yeah. They know just who we are.
My energy's indestructible, ain't a substitute. I've been through the ringer once or two, ain't gon' front of you. Blood is loose, negativity, gotta cut it loose. Immortality, balance me, I become acute. Top looking down, I've been viewing from a higher roof. Dirt on my name, don't offend me cause I'm liar-proof. Navigate through the viper's room, the entire route. Planted on my brain when I strike like the vipers do. Light beam, you see me here but I'm just sightseeing. Here to feel my purpose, validation I am not seeking. My secret and my superpower. If I told you had to kill, you gotta shine no matter who around you. This is 528, spit through a verse, and not whatever works. This is light work from the anointed ones. Or be here forever, how the story begun.
No matter what they do, they can't break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few, doing exactly what we came to do, and that's true.
They can never stop us and break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few, doing exactly what we came to do. How about you? To my survivors, we sustaining the ones remaining. We wrote the real book on power like we raising Canaan. This is deeper than rap music and entertainment. We raised up the frequency and now the game is changing. Back emerging with a classic, I'm merging with havoc. We never sacrificed the soldiers to further the status. Middle finger to you frauds, ain't heard of you bastards. Save the combative theatrics cause you can't match us. Tried to soul snatch us, but we dead at distractions. Look at karma, now you gotta watch it from the rafters. Perfection in the flesh, God's architecture. The light inside us triggers the demons and y'all lesser. Weaker vessels can't take the pressure. You don't belong in my sector, I'm a light body manifester. This mission's embedded, they can't edit our genetics. When you hear a prophet to speak, you don't forget it.
No matter what they do, they can't break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few, doing exactly what we came to do, and that's true.
They can never stop us and break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few, doing exactly what we came to do. How about you?
No matter what they do, they can't break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few,
doing exactly what we came to do,
and that's true.
They can never stop us and break us down. We know who we are.
The call, the chosen, the few,
doing exactly what we came to do.
How about you?